I wanted to give a visual for teams and how it's kind of like being in elementary school, and also how I'm envisioning the channels in my head. This is how I placed it all. So in the 80s, when you went to school, they had this big theme of halls, but it wasn't halls, it was pods. There are still some schools like this, but it seems like more and more schools are about the halls nowadays. So if you were a kindergarten and you were here, you would be near the door and you'd go to the little kindergarten pod. Of course, some schools, for whatever reason, had the kindergarten pod, like you had to go way down and like go in circles to finally get to it. It's craziness because it was the 80s. And then, maybe you went to another thing, another hall because, you were an older kid or something. Maybe you walked your sister to the kindergarten pod. But ultimately, if you were in 4th grade, and mine went up to 6th grade, but I didn't have room in here, you would go all the way to the 4th grade hall or pod. So we're going to zoom in on that 4th grade hall or pod. So I drew it as a square because it was kind of a square, but they called it a pod because there was always like this big open space in the middle that I have circled. So there's that big open space. And then all the little classrooms were like all around it. Oops. All around it. And they all had doors and the doors were open. And there was always some kind of elusive supply closet, extra little doors in here that were locked. But things could be stored in here. It wasn't just cleaning supplies, but it was also like, I don't know, paper. And there were things that were stored in here, magical things that the teachers would find and bring in the classroom from time to time. And of course, there was the single bathroom over here for the kids to use. And what they did in the 80s, they'd bring out the lovely TV stand, and they'd have to like find 10 extension cords to get the TV stand to work its way over to the plug in the wall. And then you have your little kids, they'd all sit in there, and you just put this on the highest volume. And the kids in the back kind of just had to deal if they couldn't hear very well. I remember watching the cartoon version of The Hobbit this way. You watch all kinds of TV shows in the 80s, though. They could give you any kind of show, it seemed like. Scary ones, all of it. Then what they would do, or in most of the time, this is just like for assemblies and stuff, or like giving group information. They would then send the little kids to their little classrooms, whichever classrooms they go to, and they'd put them in their little classrooms. They'd take their whole bodies with them. But they would go there. And the teachers would be in the classrooms and they'd be teaching. Now, they also had enough of these TV cards, usually, if they planned well, that all the teachers could either show sensitive subjects that are better for small groups or subjects based on them, because by the time you get to 5th and 6th, like this could also be, you'd have a classroom, but it could also be like the math area. So what they would do in those rooms is those kids would be in their little rooms and their teacher would have their own TV cards and they'd be playing. And sometimes, because it was the 80s, the teachers left the room while the video played and they would chat out here. And so you'd have a whole group of teachers chatting out here instead of being in the classroom, because that was okay back then. I'm erasing people. But you get what I'm saying. So if a student had a problem, let's say someone had to go to the bathroom or something, they could either kind of yell out the door and be like, help, I gotta go to the bathroom. Or they could come out here. So I'm gonna grab a little person. And they could leave the room. Let me grab a different. And they could come out there, taking their own lives in their hands and say, hey, everyone in the classroom is throwing spitwads at each other. And then they'd go back to their room with their teacher, who would, in theory, deal with the situation. And the teacher might pause the video, or they might run the video, or whatever they do in there. And then the teacher would go back out and talk with their friends. And the kid would go back to the classroom. They'd keep watching. And if anyone had to go to the bathroom, they just grab the hall pass, just go to the bathroom. It's fine to leave and go to the bathroom. So the idea is, with teams and lab time, you're going to enter your teams, just the app. So the app is what houses all your different whatevers. So you might have your classroom team there. You might have your online learning team or some clubs. You have tons of these all fitting into your little schoolhouse. And where we're going to head today is up to the Chem Lab. And what you get in your little Chem Lab This is our Chem Lab team. And there's a general area, and that is where like most of the instruction is going to be happening. You're going to have a lab person at the front who's going to be talking to the group, and they're going to be saying things. And then they also can push a button and they can have this video playing for the students. So this is kind of like pre-lab stuff, anything students might need to know pre-lab wise. Then they're going to say, okay, so there's too many of you out here, it's not room, or you can't hear or something. You guys go into your little classrooms. But instead of classrooms, we just call them channels. And some of these pods, some of these teams may never use the channels, but they are there, and you can make as many as you want. You might have them go to their teams. You might just make it so that only this group can go to a team. You can do that. And that they only see that only that team goes to channel, and they're the only ones that can see that channel. They can't see any of the others. Or you might just say, okay, everyone with these last names, you're going to go here, you know. And then once they're in there, they're going to have a TV cart in all the little rooms, and the room monitor, whoever, the special person, they can pick amongst themselves or whatever, will push the play button. And they can all talk, and they can all, you know, stop it. This one might say stop. They might be confused. This one might say rewind. I didn't get that. And so they can do that. They can talk over the video to each other while they're in that meeting room having that meeting. And these other kids in these other classes, these other students in these other classes can be doing the same thing. So the lab instructor will be sitting in the general room. And either a student can leave the room, and they can either leave the room and come out and get help. Hey, can you help me? We're really confused in here. We can't figure it out ourselves. And then they'll go to the room, and that'll be really clear because that student came from that channel. They can be like, we're in channel 1. Or they can just send you a little message. They can send a message a lot of different ways, but however they send you a message, that message will tell you where they are. And you'll see that help, and then you'll say, oh, I need to go to this room. Hey, what do y'all need help with? Oh, you're stuck. Okay, here's your answer. Great. And then you go back out, and you can wait in general. And if there's more than one person in here, you know, maybe you both would be in general. Or if you have, at the beginning, we'll have multiple instructors just helping everyone out. And so maybe the multiple instructors will pop into all the channels. Just make sure, hey, are you doing okay? Is this group over here doing okay? Is this group doing okay? All right, cool. And that's the idea.